Hi, everybody. Everybody can hear me? Great. So hello and welcome to our info session for BINA Gap Year. We're an intimate group today. My name is Dan Herman. I'm the director of the International Programs Department at BINA. And we're a small group, but it's a good group because we're actually coming down to our last few spots for the Gap Year program for next year. And we're excited to tell you guys a little bit more about it. So we have here with us also Talia. Talia is the madricha of the group for this current year. She's also an alum of the program from 5 years ago, right? Something like that. We have a couple of alumni, Meitav and Hannah, who've joined us as well. We might have a couple of current participants who will join us later. What we want to do is talk a little bit about what the program is all about, some of which you might know or might not know. After that, we'll give a little bit of an overview about how we're dealing with the whole coronavirus thing, which is obviously having an impact on how the program is going to look for next year. And after that, we're going to hear from our current participants and from our alumni. You guys will be welcome to ask any questions. We're a smaller group, so I've sort of opened it up for if you want to unmute yourselves and to ask any questions, or you can write in the chat or whatever you'd like. And at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about how to register, how to get signed up, and make sure that we can get one of those last spots for next year. So real quickly about what BINA is. BINA is an Israeli nonprofit organization, and we do what's called Jewish renewal work. We're essentially trying to open up the definitions of what it means to be Jewish in Israel beyond just the traditional religious Orthodox definitions, but to make it something that's much more open and welcoming for all people. And we want to invite Jews from all over the world to take part in that. And the way that we do that is through three things. We do it through learning, Jewish learning, in a pluralistic, open, critical viewpoint. We do it through social action, working in communities all around Israel. And we build our own communities, and we grow leaders for the future in Israeli society. So that means not only are we coming together to do learning and social action, we're building communities within our groups, and also our groups are part of the larger BINA communities. Those are based out of our secular yeshiva, our yeshivot chiloniot. The Gap Year program is connected to our Tel Aviv secular yeshiva. We also have secular yeshivot in Jerusalem, and Haifa, and Beersheba. We're supposed to have a project in Dharamsala in India, which obviously isn't running right now because of the COVID pandemic, and in Palo Alto out of the JCC. I'm gonna show a short video that tells a little bit more about the program, and then Talia will explain a bit more.
The GAP program has a combination of different aspects that are really cool, that I really enjoy, and kind of are what brought me to this specific program. It is first and foremost an Israeli program, unlike a lot of other things that people do when they come searching for gap years. They look for American programs that are based in Israel, but this is, in essence, an Israeli program that we join as Americans or Europeans or anyone living outside of Israel. In Israel, but this is, in essence, an Israeli program that we join as Americans or Europeans or anyone living outside of Israel.
And the fact that we're able to do work here and to volunteer with the refugee community within Israel and to help with domestic issues is really amazing, that we get to learn about Judaism and live our lives in a Jewish way, as well as helping people, and that it helps me understand who I am as a person and my connection to Judaism, as well as my connection to Israel and the social action and the social justice work that I do, especially from things that I did back home.
This program really interested me because we're studying Judaism in a secular way and finding out what it really means to us, and not just accepting it because it's been passed down to us, but really like being proud of our Judaism.
This is something that's important to us, and that BINA allows that.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Talia. I'm the current madricha of the Gap Year program. I'm gonna talk a little bit more in detail about what the program actually looks like on a day-to-day basis, and then you'll have the opportunity to ask participants and a past participant what their experience of this program has been. This is a group picture of the Mechina from a few years ago, just so you get a sense of the community, the size of the Mechina group, which I'll explain a little bit more about as we move on. As Dan said, BINA has gap year programs within Israeli frameworks that allow people from all over the world to take part in learning, action, and community through BINA, and also to be part of an Israeli experience through either a Mechina or Shnat Sherut. Mechina means preparation, and it's an Israeli program for teenagers after high school and before the army, in which they spend their time equally divided between studying, volunteering, and doing sort of community work within the group and within the program. And a Shnat Sherut means year of service, and it's a year-long program also for Israelis between high school and the army that is focused more on volunteering and less on classes. And we offer programs in both of those areas for whoever's more interested in the learning aspect or the volunteering aspect. So I'm going to talk first about the Shnat Sherut in Tel Aviv. This is an opportunity to be with 7 Americans or 7 internationals and 7 Israelis together in called what we call in Hebrew a kamuna. It's like a closed living group that does different activities and volunteering and shares in daily life and communal activities together. This program has a real emphasis on social action. You're volunteering several days a week, a bit more than in the Mechina, and you're learning a little bit fewer hours a week, and you're able to volunteer in Tel Aviv in education with asylum seeking populations, your learning will be in English together with the Israelis. Just to say a couple words about our learning, we our classes are not like your high school classes. They're learning for the fun of it, not for a test, and they're really designed to help you just reflect on your life and your world and see it in new and different ways. So you have classes in Jewish content, Bible, Talmud, philosophy, and they're truly and different, like interesting and fun. You can definitely ask the participants. They're not, I think, what you might imagine from a Bible or Talmud class. We also have content that's meant to help you learn a bit about the place that you're in, about Israel, present-day society, Israeli culture, Israeli history, Israeli songs. There's Hebrew that you learn in Ulpan, and there's also the opportunity to learn Hebrew through immersion, through being in different Hebrew language activities and through making Israeli friends and picking up the Hebrew that's all around you in this environment. There's also plenty of opportunities for learning outside of the classroom through trips, guest speakers, seminars, learning that's put together and led by participants, learning that's put together and led by staff. So we do our learning, but we don't just stay inside the classroom. We give our participants the tools to take action in the community that they're living in, and also to learn about that community so they don't come in blind to the needs of that community. So the volunteering can be with the youth, with refugees, with elderly people, in environmentalism, Jewish-Arab coexistence. There are many, many options for volunteering, and there's also different ways to get involved in the community of BINA through activism, Jewish culture, sustainability, all sorts of different committees, and also activism that is participant-led right now. Hannah is in something called the activism track of the Mechina, and she's part of leading and planning that track. So if you have questions about what an activism track is, you can ask Hannah at the end of my spiel. A bit about community leadership and community life. In your experience in the program, you're living with a group of people where you share a budget, you share the cooking, the cleaning, the responsibilities, and that's a really key part of the program is fostering and building that group dynamic. And that's something that we do put a lot of time and energy into, is talking to each other, making plans, and really like building and investing in the community. It's not really like a situation where everyone lives in their own room, in their own dorm, and minds their own business. Everyone is really wrapped up in each other's business and living together in a really intimate way. That's also a great thing to ask the participants about. Every other Shabbat, you have either a free weekend or a weekend with the community. If you have a free weekend, that means you can stay in the apartment in Tel Aviv. That means you can go visit your family in some other part of Israel. That means you can visit a friend from the program who lives in a certain city and you can go visit them. The participants can attest to the fact that the Israelis are overwhelmingly welcoming and are really happy to host you for holidays and different weekends. And it's like a great way to see the country is by visiting your Israeli friends in the program. And if you're not free on that Shabbat, then you have a communal Shabbat where you stay on the campus in Tel Aviv and you have Shabbat services, Shabbat dinner, and Shabbat activities together. And it's a really special environment that is not to be missed. This is also a program that gives you a ton of leadership experience that you can carry with you your whole life. Every single participant is really pushed to take as much leadership as they can in formal and informal settings and it really, I think, teaches every single participant how to so much about themselves and about leadership in terms of planning the spring tracks, planning, like being in charge of the group for 2 weeks. Everyone gets to be at least once the 2-week leader of the group. So leadership is a huge focus of the program. Another key part of the program that makes us pretty unique from other programs is the fact that this is an intentionally international program that is very Israeli. That means that internationals and Israelis were like all mixed up together. That means that you're like really living and learning and like with Israelis. I can't emphasize that enough. And that means that you have a lot of opportunities to learn Hebrew and learn about Israeli society. And that also means that a lot is happening around you all the time in Hebrew. But at the same time, you have your group that is an English-speaking group. You have your madrich that is an English-speaking person that is there to guide you, and the group becomes like a really safe and welcoming and necessary space when you're in the Hebrew environment all the time, which is exciting and awesome, but can be exhausting even for Hebrew speakers. And again, this is something you can ask participants about. Also, you can being with Israelis, you learn a lot more about Israeli society than you would in a classroom, about what it means to be Jewish in Israel, what it means to be Israeli in Israel, who is Israeli, what does it mean to be a Zionist. So what kind of people are we looking for in the program? What kind of people should come to this program? I'll tell you that people who are looking for a very meaningful year are people who will love this program. It's a chance to have a very meaningful program and a very meaningful year, and to really be authentically a part of Israeli culture. People who care about social justice, coexistence in Israel, people who care about Israel and want to learn about Israel and what it really is, people who are interested in their Jewish identity and Jewish values and want to really dig into that and learn about that, people who are interested in leadership and interested in getting up and doing things will really find their place here.
Maybe we'll transition there. Thanks, Talia.
Okay.
I just want to throw in also, because we talked about Mechina and we talked about Shnat Sherut. BINA as an organization offers both of those options. We run both of those options for Israelis. And in the gap year, traditionally, we've run the gap year out of our Mechina program. This year, the Mechina is pretty much full. There may be another space that may open right now, but at the moment, the Mechina track is full, and we've opened the Shnat Sherut track as an additional option, essentially because we've had a lot of demand for our spaces, and we're offering that as an additional option. What that actually means for you is the main differences are, one, as Talia mentioned, the ratio of volunteering to learning is a little bit more to the side of volunteering, which is to say that in the gap, where it's anywhere from a day and a half to 2 days a week altogether of volunteering and the rest of the time learning, here it's 3 days a week volunteering and 2 days of learning. So it's not a dramatic shift, but there is more of a focus on the volunteering side of things. The other side of it, which is, I think has probably advantages and disadvantages maybe, or it's, we'll see, but essentially the Mechina track within, or for the gap year within the Mechina, is a group of English speakers that is one of many groups within the Mechina that all the other groups are Israelis. You live in an apartment with other internationals, but the other apartments in your building are with Israeli groups and the other groups, and you have lots and lots of interaction with the other groups. In the Shnat Sherut program, it's one group that's much more heterogeneous. Essentially, you have one group that's half internationals and half Israelis. The Israelis are able to speak English. That's the reason why they're in that group. And you're living with those Israelis. You're studying with those Israelis, something that happens in a bit of a different format in the Mechina program. Those are the main differences. Other than that, the programs are largely similar. So just to clarify that aspect of things, in both tracks, by the way, we are offering learning that is optional has the option for college credits as well. So I want to say a couple of things, and I'll just sort of reiterate again, if anybody has questions, welcome to put them in the chat, or we'll open it up later. I want to say a couple of things just about the upcoming year, which is going to be a little bit unusual because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, and we don't necessarily know everything right now because obviously the things are changing very quickly, and life is a bit unpredictable, more unpredictable than usual at this moment. I do think that the program is going to sort of, or having a program is going to require everybody to be a little bit flexible and prepared for potential changes in the situation. I will say, first of all, that the good news, knock on wood, is that Israel's situation as far as coronavirus is quite good overall at the moment. Things have begun to open up as numbers in terms of the spread of the COVID-19 virus have come quite low. Schools have opened back up. There's widespread testing, masks and other sorts of things are readily available basically any corner store, any drugstore. And we as a program have been taking the necessary precautions to make sure that everything that's done within the program and everything that will be done within the program for next year will be in strict accordance with Ministry of Health guidelines and guidelines of other authorities that are overseeing the program. This past year, by the way, when things broke out, what we essentially did when we were forced to sort of shut down our operations and go into some sort of quarantine format, the GAP participants were offered the opportunity to go to families, either with the Mechina families or people that were able to go and spend essentially that shutdown time with those families. Our learning and everything continued on Zoom format. We have our participants, we have Yasmin and Hannah sitting together there. Maybe they can tell, when we get to our panel discussion, tell a bit more about their experience. We've heard from participants, it was actually a really, certainly a memorable experience, and in a lot of ways a positive experience in being able to be a part of a family during that time and having really that hospitality and place to go to. We hope that's not going to be necessary in the next year, but that is an option that we will reserve, and we're prepared as an organization that we're able to provide for all the participants in the event that something like that would happen. Our insurance is already, we've already confirmed with our health insurance that anything that's involving the coronavirus, COVID-19, and all of that stuff is covered by the insurance. And we've made adjustments in terms of scheduling, in terms of programming to enable social distancing, everything, of course, with in keeping with the requirements to have masks and social distancing and activities and things like that. We're right now getting an understanding of what exactly the requirements and how we'll be opening the program next year. Anybody who's already registered or accepted to the program received a letter, should have received a letter today talking a bit about what we're planning on doing. And basically, the government has already provided authorization that we know that we're going to be able to have our participants enter the country. They'll have approval to enter the country. We're going to be able to provide entry permits online that you'll essentially have and be able to take with you to arrive in the country. It does not look like anyone will need to go to a consulate or anything like that to receive a visa. You'll be able to enter the country. We're going to arrange for transportation. And at the moment, the assumption that we have is that the program will begin with some sort of quarantine period. Normally, up until now, it's been 2 weeks. We have gotten the understanding today from Masad that we'll be getting more information soon, that they're in negotiations from Ministry of Health or in talks with Ministry of Health to understand exactly what the requirement will be. But we're preparing ourselves that that's going to be the beginning of the program. It's a bit of a bummer because it's not the way you want to necessarily land in Israel. But hopefully over the course of the year, that 2 weeks at the beginning will be worth it to be able to have a really meaningful year. Our staff is going to be available during that time. We're going to provide all the necessities that you need during that entire time. And if there are any sort of emergencies or whatever, our staff as always is on call and available for those sorts of things. We did write on our website, and we will reiterate that in what seems to be the unlikely event that we'll have to cancel the program because of a renewed outbreak or something like that, we would offer a full refund of paid tuition. Just because we want people to be able to feel confident that you're able to make a commitment to the program and you're not sort of gambling. At this moment, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen because really, again, knock on wood, things are fairly well under control. And we hope that this could be actually a good, meaningful option for folks who, instead of spending your first semester of college studying online, to be able to come here and to be able to do something that it won't be our typical year in the gap year. But that's at least how things are looking at the moment. It's shaping up to be something that will be something close to normal in as much as best a way as possible. Wherever we all are next year, it's probably going to be unusual, and that seems to be clear at this point. So again, if there are any questions, we're happy to take those up in a little bit. I'm going to pass the baton over to Talia again. So we have our 2 alumni, Meitav and Hannah. We have our 2 current participants, Yasmin and other Hannah. And you're, by the way, able to, because we're such a small group here too, you're able to unmute yourselves and ask questions, but I'll mute myself in the meantime.
All right, this is the most interesting part, in my opinion. Can each participant and also past participants just take a moment to introduce yourself and say maybe where you're from and where you are right now and what your name is? Let's start with the alums.
Hi, I'm Meitav. I am currently in Chicago, and I am also from Chicago, and I am an alum from last year.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm in Portland, Oregon right now. I did the program 2 years ago, and I'm a student at McGill in Montreal.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm from Baltimore, and I'm going to Tulane in the fall.
I'm Yasmin. I'm from New York. I'm on the GAP program, and I'm going to Smith in the fall, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone. I would like to do just one more round where everybody gives me an answer. Can you just give me a few words about why you chose the program? What made you choose BINA Gap Year out of all the gap year options that you had? Let's start with current participants.
I chose this gap year program because I wanted a community of Americans or English speakers so that it would be an easier transition and so that I could learn more I wanted to learn Hebrew, but I didn't want to be thrown into it. So that was why I chose it. Yeah, me too. Mostly, like, I knew that I wanted to be in Israel and I wanted to do a program, and I also really, it was important to me to be, like, in Tel Aviv and be in a city where I had, like, mobility, and, like, could do stuff throughout the day. And then also, I really wanted to be with Israelis and, like, not be on an American Gap Year program where I was only surrounded by Americans or international people. So.
Thanks. Hannah, can you also share with us why you chose the program a few years ago?
Yeah. I also wanted to learn Hebrew. That was a huge thing for me, and I think this is like probably the best way you can do it. And I also wanted to do something like social justice oriented, where you're like really not only like getting involved in the Israeli community of like participants, but you're getting involved in your community that you're living in, and like not just taking it for granted, but like really getting to know people and like being a part of making the community a positive place. I think that's probably it.
Thanks so much. I'm going to move on to a question for our current participants. Michelle, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Would you like to share why you chose the program as well?
Sure, yeah, no worries. I chose BINA, well, first again, because it was an Israeli program and I really wanted to learn Hebrew and immerse myself in Israeli society. But I also really wanted to explore my relationship to Judaism in Israel. And I didn't want to just explore it through learning in a classroom, but also through physical actions that I, can partake in on a day-to-day basis. And BINA really had the perfect mix of learning plus action and volunteering. That really, I think, helps you fully grasp a much stronger understanding about your relationships to everything that's going on, because you're able to explore it in a classroom, learn about it, and then apply it to real life. So that was one of the biggest draws for me that I think really solidified why BINA was the right choice.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to move now to a question for our current participants, Hannah and Yasmin. I would love to hear from both of you. What is special to you about the program? What is an aspect that you really love about it?
Something like that I've noticed from like speaking to my friends on other gap year programs and other mechinot is that the people who come to BINA are like very special. Like it attracts a really certain type of person, not only for like the gap year, but also like the Israelis. So like the people here are really quirky and like strange and like from all over. It's not just like from one part of Israel, from one demographic. Like it's like pretty, not necessarily racially diverse, but like geographically and like diverse in the aspects like what people are interested in. It's just like a really interesting, fun community to be a part of.
I think, wait, is it our favorite thing?
Something we like.
Something. I think something that I really enjoy about the program now that like it's almost the end, it's just like how comfortable I am with anyone in the program, even though there's so many people. Just like probably just a sense of community and how like it really feels like I have a lot of people that are like have my best interests in mind and that I can always like go to or like talk to, and just like I just feel like people who I don't even really know that well, I could really like tell them anything, and just like a very trusting, like supportive environment.
It's really nice to hear. I'm going to move now to the alumni, and my question for both of you is, how do you think the gap year had an impact on you now that you're able to look at it from a year or two out? What was its impact?
The gap year had an amazing impact on me. Before going into my gap year, I didn't really have a very concrete understanding of what my personal relationship was to Judaism or to Israel. And oftentimes being the only Jew in a room back in my school, I would oftentimes be confronted with having to explain Judaism, having to explain Israel, having to explain how I relate to those things. And I realized that I wasn't able to do that. And this big part of my identity wasn't really formed yet. And it was something that I was still figuring out and sorting out. And then after I went to BINA and, I had this entire amazing year where I was able to explore my relationships with all of those things and learn about things that I never even knew existed. I really left feeling so much more, I think, complete and at peace with those parts of my identity and my Jewish identity and my relationship to Israel. And I feel really I feel very confident in myself in a way that I wasn't before. And that really has carried over into the work that I do in college. Like, I'm much more confident in college. I'm constantly having conversations with people about Judaism and Israel. Those are two things that are now incredibly important to me. And I feel really comfortable having those conversations because BINA taught me how to have those conversations in a healthy way and how to really explore those things and how to really open up the world to like understanding what does it mean to be Jewish? What does it mean to have a relationship with Israel? And I just really feel like I feel so much more complete as a person and as a Jew, in a way that I think can only be attributed to this amazing gap year and like the experiences that I had and the relationships that I was able to form.
That's a great answer. I think for me, like, in addition to like being able to have those kind of conversations, that's a huge part of it. I think also just like you're really pushed a lot in this program to do things that may be out of your comfort zone or things you like really didn't think you could ever do, and you just do them and you have this really supportive community to do them with. And so I think for me, like going to college, I just like had this newfound confidence and this like ability to kind of take on any kind of challenge because BINA like really threw me into those challenges in a way that I'm really grateful for. And the other thing is I made my best friends on this program and they're still my best friends today. And like, I have BINA to be grateful to for that. Both Israeli and American friends.
Thanks. I'm going to ask now a question about the pandemic. I'd love to hear from Hannah and Yasmin a bit about what it was like for you to go through the pandemic while in this program, and how has that been?
I think the pandemic situation was definitely like a roller coaster. Like, there were like times when it was really, really hard to be so far from home in a time when everyone was at home and like all these crazy things are happening, and I kind of just like wanted my parents and like my own house. But I was really lucky to find like an Israeli family in the Mechina that really took me in, and that made me feel like I could make a home for myself there and have everything I need and feel safe. And overall, I had a really good time, but it definitely took a big like chunk out of the year that was just like not exactly how I thought it was gonna go. But I think there are other things that I gained through it, even though we lost a lot of time.
Yeah, it is a shame about the time and also like the specific time in which it happened, because like it was like April and like the end of the year, and there were so many like fun trips planned and things like that we won't get to do. But honestly, I think that Israel is like the best place that I could have been, like comparatively to all my friends in the rest of the world. Like, I think that I had the best Corona experience. Like, I was living on a kibbutz, and it was really fun, like with someone else from the Mechina, and like one of the Israelis was like housing us kind of, and it was just like a really, it was a nice experience. It was a contrast from the rest of the year, which was so packed. And that's another thing. It was very strange because the Mechina as a whole is like really packed every day. The schedule is like from 8 to 10 p.m., like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. most days. So it's a lot of like consistently like doing things, and especially like if you're taking on like projects and stuff like that, it's a lot of it. And then to go from that to like coming back to the Mechina and like having to really tone things down and like creating our own schedule. So it's like been a lot less like the Mechina that we're in now, like post Corona, is still like a lot more chill and like less intense, which is also a nice thing.
Thanks. I'm going to open up now for a chance for the visitors on this chat to ask some questions. You can ask them out loud. You can type them in the chat. If you don't ask questions, I'll just keep asking questions, but I'd love to give you a chance to ask what's on your mind. You can ask truly whatever you're curious about to alumni or current participants, or Dan or me.
I have a question. I'm Sarah. I'm also from Chicago. So hi, Maytov. I've never met you, but that's good. I've spoken to like a lot of people about BINA in the last week. Like today I talked to Hannah, had an interview with her, and I've talked to Lilit, who I know, and like other Masa people, and everything sounds super cool. But I just wanted to know a little bit more about what type of like volunteering activities you guys do, because I'm just interested. Today Hannah told me that there's volunteering in like South Tel Aviv in the schools, and then there's also stuff in Yafo. So I was just wondering like what different types of activities you guys get to do.
So me and Ismin are actually in the same volunteering, so I don't know if like that'll be like too helpful to tell about our experience, but like over you. But there's like basically I can tell you all the like different things that were available to GAP this year. There was Yanshufim, which is what we did, which is like volunteering in primary schools in like arts enrichment programs, and that's like with just Israeli children. But then there's also like a different branch that's Keshet, that's like refugee children. So that's like just a different experience because the demographics of the kids are really different. And then
I volunteered with an organization called Mesila, which is in South Tel Aviv. They have a lot of like they're called babysitters, which are these basically daycares open by like women in the neighborhood who just host like all the children of the working parents, which is everyone in the neighborhood. So it's like a lot of children, like really, really adorable. And I was kind of just playing with them, like also trying to teach them, but their like learning level is kind of behind because their language is really confused. Like they don't really speak any language fluently because they're like constantly hearing different things. But that was like a really, really meaningful volunteering, like, and it was also like right around the corner. So like literally it took me 30 seconds to walk there. So, and I would also like see the kids that I volunteered with on the streets and stuff like that. And that was like a really cool thing. And then I also did Yantrufim, which was going to like after school programs, and that was more of a leadership role. Like you can kind of take on as much responsibility as you want. Like I would
teacher assistant.
Yeah, I would like make presentations for the teacher sometimes and like run things and like find videos. And it's like a pretty personal connection. Like the people who run it, like you can text them and talk to them if you have problems with it. Like I was having problems with one of my teachers, so I called like the woman who's in charge of me, and we had a really good relationship, and we like worked it out. Like it's like it can be as good as you want it to be.
There's also UNITEF, which is also kind of like Masila. It's like little children, which is just like really, you kind of think like, oh, it's all kids, but it's actually so different working with like, let's say 3-year-olds than with like 6-7-year-olds. Like I was in UNITEF for a little, and I just found it like really, really overwhelming to have all these babies touching me, and I just like didn't really feel that comfortable. So I talked to the people in charge of volunteering, and I ended up working in a soup kitchen in South Tel Aviv, which is really interesting. Just like a lot of like people come every single day, like tons and tons of people, and I just said that. Do you want to be on this call? What else? And depending on how good your Hebrew is, like there are other opportunities, like working with older people, Holocaust survivors, and like tutoring. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying I would love it if you two could say a few words about the volunteering that you've been organizing in the past few weeks in the community related to the coronavirus.
So for Masul activism, we've been working with a few organizations. A lot of them right now, like something I've done a lot with like maybe 4 or 5 organizations. It's food packaging to send out to people, like packaging food to send to Holocaust survivors, packaging food for families, which is something I did today with an organization called Eli Felet. And then we've also been volunteering with this organization called Achoti, which like supports refugee women and men in the community. And we went to the Women's March with them. And we've also been volunteering at Kuche Nate, which is right across the street from our apartment. And it's this really cool organization.
It's so cool.
Like for refugee women from mainly Eritrea and Sudan. And it's like they just crochet tons and tons of stuff, like baskets, and now they're like making masks, and they sell all these things, and then the money goes towards the cause of helping refugee women. But it's just a really cool community to like go and help, and just like the women are so nice. And yeah, what else? I feel like it's mostly it for like what we've done so far. We're still working on some other things.
Thanks so much. Other questions from the crowd?
That like go to a lot of protests and stuff.
Yeah, there's tons of protests like every single day.
Like even in Corona times.
Any other questions from the crowd?
So maybe I'll just say, first of all, to sum up a little bit and then talk about the technical stuff. If there are any other questions, of course, we're happy to answer. First of all, I think it's the program is in Tel Aviv, but it's in a particular area of Tel Aviv, which is South Tel Aviv. It's where BINA has been operating about 25 years, most of the time the organization has existed. And it's a neighborhood that's very interesting. It's very challenging as well. You can hear about a lot of the populations from what the folks have talked about, that there's a very significant population of asylum seekers and refugees living in the area, mostly from Sudan and from Eritrea. And the places that you're working are places that serve those communities. It's a really interesting and unique window on Israeli society, because when you're meeting Israeli society through serious volunteering, serious social action work, you're seeing a side of Israel that you don't typically see in your normal sort of teen tour. And that's part of the idea here, is not only are we having a complex and really in-depth discussion about Judaism, but we're seeing Israel in a totally different way. And so finding that connection with Israel is really through all the complexity as well. When Hannah and Yasmin, we have a lot of Hannahs, I've noticed, both on this call and on our staff. It's a popular name. As Hannah and Yasmin were talking about the protests and things like that. And for example, because it's Tel Aviv, because BINA, both the and the internationals that come are the types that are very politically active, it gives an opportunity for really, really great and intense discussions about political issues, about Israeli society, and opportunities to be engaged as well. I mean, the idea isn't that you're just coming to look and see Israel, but to be active participants in it, both through volunteering and through taking part in activism, and of course learning, because you can't do all of that without actually learning and engaging in those things. I think the other day too, some of our participants I saw had gone to a demonstration in support of Black Lives Matters outside of the U.S. Embassy, or it's a consulate, whatever it is now in Tel Aviv. And all the time there are different sorts of activisms. There was another demonstration because of a recent rash of violent crimes against women in Israel, domestic violence that have in cases of murder and things like that. And there was a large demonstration that our participants took part in. And that's the idea, is you're not coming here to see Israel, you're coming to Israel to be part of it, to be active participants in everything that's going on here. And even when that means sometimes that you have to go to the demonstration with a mask and keep your distance from other folks. I'll say a couple quick words about the technical aspects of things. If there are any questions about that or anything else, of course, you're still welcome to chime in. So as I mentioned, right now the Mechina is essentially filled, and the Shnat Sherut group is starting to fill up as well. So I'm going to put in the chat window the link for the application page, and it's important to get on that as quickly as possible. And it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot to it. And if you folks were in touch with Hannah already, then Hannah the registration Hannah, not one of the Hannahs here, then you're already on the right track. Essentially, there's a couple parts of the application that are available online: a general questionnaire, health questionnaire, and some essay questions that are important for us to get to know you a bit better and make sure that this is going to be a good fit for everybody involved. At that point, you'll also have a Zoom interview with Hannah Cook, who is in here right now. And once all of that goes through and it looks like it's a good fit, then you get accepted to the program. At that point, then we ask that you make your first deposit to secure your spot on the program. That deposit essentially is your first payment towards your tuition. Right now, our timetable is a little bit crunched because of what I talked about earlier, those entry permits to Israel is this new kind of bureaucratic process that we've never really done before because we're in sort of uncharted territory with the coronavirus and all the different things like that. So we're hoping in the next few weeks to get everybody who wants to come in the program through that application process so that we're able to understand who's going to be here and make sure that we can get all of those entry permits taken care of. So I'll put the application link in the chat window. I'm available. Hannah Cook is available as well for any questions that you might have about all of about the registration process and of course about the program itself. Once you get through the process, once you've applied and had your interview and you're accepted, we'll hold your spot for a week while you think about things until you make that deposit payment. That's essentially the timeline. One other thing that I'll mention as well is the college credits that we're offering, which can be a good option if you're not going to be going to your campus or whatever college that you're going to in the fall isn't going to be open. And if you're taking a gap year, you also have the opportunity to at least start getting some credits. We're going to offer 3 courses for college credit, a Hebrew language course, as well as 2 additional courses. Everybody in the program will take part in these courses. Those who are taking it for credit will receive a grade and will have additional assignments that you'll need to complete, usually some sort of final project and a participation grade of some kind. So the courses will be one that's our Israeli Society course, and the other will be the Talmud course as well. Each of those courses are 3 credits, and it's through a Gratz College, a partnership that we have with Gratz College, which is a college in Philadelphia. And we have a list of universities that essentially what happens is you sign up for those courses. Once completing all of the coursework, you receive a grade, and then you get an official Gratz transcript, and you can use that to try and transfer those credits to your college or university. It's really important to mention that there's a long list of very prominent colleges and universities in North America that accept credits from Gratz, but you need to make sure that your university will accept those credits because it's not universal. There are some colleges and universities that won't accept them or that might have conditions or want to approve them in advance. So we very, very much encourage you to check that out before making that decision about the credits. And that's a process that we're going through with folks who get accepted to the program through July and maybe into the beginning of August. We're moving up the timetable on that this year a little bit. There is an additional payment that is made to BINA for tuition for the Gratz credits. It's about $600. This year was about $700 per course. We haven't gotten the tuition update from Gratz for next year, but we assume that's going to be around that amount. And later on down the line, we're going to send out more information about those credits. That's the college credits. The link to the application is in the chat window. If there are any other questions, we're happy to answer. And otherwise,
oh, sorry. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So we're all living. If I went, would I be living in an apartment with other participants? And
Yes.
we'd like cook food together. That's what you meant by communal, correct? Okay. If I have
Sorry, go ahead.
If I have some food allergies, would I have a problem with that?
How severe are your food allergies?
Like, no, more like intolerances. Like, not like I'm not going to have such a severe reaction, but I just can't eat certain things.
I mean,
Girls, do you want to talk a bit about the communal living and also about like maybe living with a dietary restriction on the program?
Well, I'm vegan. Most of the people in this futsal are vegan. Most of the people in the Mechina are vegan.
It didn't start that way.
That's not true. Like, are you on this? Wait, shut up. Like, there are people who have like really severe allergies to gluten and stuff, like celiac disease and stuff like that, and they manage. I know it takes like a little putting pressure and complaining and stuff on the Mechina, but like they have their own food. Like, I don't think it will be a problem for you at all. And the way that the communal living works in terms of food is that you get a weekly budget to order food. There's a supermarket here that we would shop at, but I think now they're changing it more to food orders as we've been doing, which
maybe I'll jump in because it'll be a little bit different on the Shnat model of things because so Hannah and Yasmin are in the Mechina, and the Mechina is a humongous group of a whole bunch of people, and some of the meals are communal for everybody and other meals are smaller, but in the Shnat Sherut, where we're talking about a group of around probably about 16 people, and a lot of those meals are prepared in the house, and you have a group budget that's used to prepare those meals, and of course that group would be able to take into consideration, of course, I'm assuming you wouldn't be the only person with food allergies, sensitivities, things like that. There is let's say probably a disproportionate number of vegans in our program compared to the population at large, and there are ways to and certainly we do whatever we can to make sure that a food allergy, a food sensitivity shouldn't be a barrier to participation for anybody, in short.
Okay, great. So just to clarify, we make the food together. So that's like, it's kind of like we cook with each other.
Yeah, in the Shnat Sherut, you cook with each other. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more question. It's like kind of specific, but so I know that I don't know if you guys are familiar, but like there's a school called Yad B'Yad there are a bunch of them in Israel, but there's one in Yafo, and like I was just wondering if you guys work with them at all, or like if you work with schools similar to that work with like Arab-Israeli coexistence, that kind of thing. Or if that would be an option of a volunteering type thing, or is it like you guys already have kind of the options and then we look at what you offer?
So we've worked with them in the past. We haven't in the last several years. I, off the top of my head, don't know to say if there's any specific reason that we don't work there, but generally we try to focus our work in a few schools with an emphasis on schools in our neighborhood. So Yad B'Yad is definitely a school that we've worked with, not only in Yafo, but in other places around the country. In this particular case, we work a little bit more with, because we're located in South Tel Aviv, we work a little bit more with those schools in that area. Beyond that, I should mention that in the Shnat Sherut, the Israelis in the group, sort of part of the deal, the reason that essentially they get this sort of extra year before they go into the army is because there are sort of different communal organizations in the municipality that have service projects that they need them to help out with. So their volunteering is a little bit less, they have fewer options, and we would like to offer the GAP participants also to be able to do the volunteering together with them. It might not be possible in every situation. So I wouldn't rule out I won't rule out 100% Yad B'Yad. It could be something that's an option, but and it's not something that we've offered in the last few years. One of the schools I know that we've worked with a lot, and I know in the GAP, is a school called Bialik Gozin, which is a school that's become sort of or it had become sort of famous in South Tel Aviv. It's a public school that caters very, very strongly to asylum seeker and migrant worker populations in that area. So that, for example, is a school that we've been working at, but essentially to work with whatever schools that are in need in the area and serve, sort of the many different populations living around there.
Cool. Thank you.
Great. So thank you, everybody, for taking part. Again, we're available. I'll put the email address for any additional questions. If you'd like to, if you remember something later on, we're also going to make a recording of this available for all the folks who missed out on all of the fun we had here today. And we hope to see everybody, even our alumni in Tel Aviv, very soon. So thanks again, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Thanks.
Thank you.